Hi, my name is Joyce Pellino Crane. I'm the news director here at WestfordCAT. Today we're launching a new series of shows called Women Empowered by Art. In the aftermath of the Me Too movement and the revelations of sexual misconduct in the workplace that left many women feeling overpowered and abused, I wanted to bring you something positive and beautiful. I wanted to remind you that the life we have in this country is extraordinary, both in the beauty of nature and the production of art. This series will bring you female artists of all types. These are women who have regional followings because of their art. In this, our first production of Women Empowered, we bring you writer Debbie Hagan, whose essay, Gargoyles, was just published in the book Fearless: Women's Journeys to Self-Empowerment by Cat Pleska. Debbie, welcome.
Thank you.
So happy to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Debbie's 7-page essay tells a story of the workplace improprieties she experienced as a young career woman. And in a few minutes, she's going to read for us an excerpt of her essay, Gargoyles. But first, let me tell you a little bit about her background. Debbie is a book reviews editor for Brevity and author of Against the Tide. Her writing has appeared in Harvard Review, Hyperallergic, Pleiades, Superstition Review, Brainchild, and many more publications. She's a visiting lecturer at the Massachusetts College of Art and Design. And I'm so happy to have you. I should actually disclose that we have known each other for many years.
Yeah, it's been like 23 years, yeah.
Has it? I never did the math.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
But I do remember all our walks
Yes.
in the sanctuary at Phillips Academy and how we walked by the house of Harriet Beecher Stowe every day on our way.
We sure did. We sure did.
And it was a very fertile period for us in terms of our writing.
Yeah, we shared many writing experiences together.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. And you were very inspirational for me to get started as a writer.
Oh, well, likewise. You, yeah.
Oh no, you were already going, and I was just starting. But this book, Fearless, is what led me to start this new series. So the idea comes from this book, Fearless by Cat Pleska. So I am going to let you read.
Okay.
And then we'll talk a little more.
Sounds good. Thank you. Gargoyles. In 1990, I sat in a linen draped table in one of Manhattan's Midtown Chinese restaurants, waiting for my old boss from St. Louis to walk through the door. In a city filled with great restaurants, he had to pick the one that had a funeral parlor ambiance, blood red velvet decor, strange music buzzing from tiny speakers, and an odd pickle smell. Hours earlier, I had been in my office proofreading a 2-page ad going into Sunday's New York Times when he called. I knew it was Bill by the long, flat Midwestern vowels. I had worked 5 years for him before getting married, moving to New Jersey, and becoming marketing director for an international publisher. It had been a year since I'd seen him. He prattled on and on about clients and coworkers we both knew, while I stared out at the window, watching the sun paint a rose gold over the Chrysler building and etch deep shadows into its steel eagle gargoyles. I remembered how photographer Margaret Burke White used to keep a studio near the gargoyles on the 64th floor. During the building's construction, welders and riveters told her, "When you're working at 800 feet above ground, make believe you are at 8 feet and relax." They coaxed her on to one of the gargoyle's steely beaks, where she dangled with her big box camera in the air, taking some of the city's most iconic photographs. "Look, I'm only in town today, so why don't we grab lunch? My treat," my old boss said. "I have an ad to finish up." "Come on," he insisted. "Everyone has to eat." The old salesman strategy, beg until she says yes. As I waited in the restaurant, I couldn't help but think I was no longer Bill's girl. All of us on the magazine, newbie or seasoned journalist, 25 or 45, we had all been girls. We interviewed artists and art dealers around the country, attended glitzy parties, stayed at swanky hotels, and occasionally met celebrities. It felt glamorous, and the bosses figured this into our meager pay. At an awards banquet in Chicago, Bill introduced each girl to the audience. As he introduced our names, we stood. He gave our title, and then an odd, embarrassing personal quip. When he came to me, he laughed and said, "Well, this is our blonde editor." The crowd laughed, and that was it. No name, no title. It turned into a running joke. "Here comes the blonde editor." I didn't take it personally. Bill was a kindly old guy, albeit a bit of a goof. He'd taken a chance on me and nurtured my career. I appreciated it. Eventually, I began taking a harder look at the publishing company that produced our magazine. It had been 3 tiers: salesmen in suits, girls writing, photographing, editing, and producing the magazines, and a handful of faceless support staff. Our magazine was like a catalog, 400 plus pages every month, half being ads. The suits, guys selling the ads, benefited the most. The girls traveled, often staying in 4-star hotels, treating themselves and a client or two to lobster dinners and a Broadway play. The suits figured this into the salaries and overlooked these little indulgences. In the restaurant, I noticed Bill trotted down the street, his Burberry coat, tails flying, his battered leather briefcase swinging, his umbrella waving above his head. In the foyer, he shook like an old hound dog, dropping his gear, placing his hat on a hook. I raised my hand, wiggled my fingers. His eyes lit up. Before he walked toward me, he placed his left arm under his right elbow. His right hand pivoted, slapping his cheek, triggering a big eye roll. His Jack Benny routine. Oh, I'd forgotten all about this. He stood frozen, displaying this wretched woe is me expression. I laughed, which seemed the only thing to do, yet I hated myself. Bill sauntered to my table, then scooted his chair close to mine. He leaned over and whispered into my hair, "I've missed you so much." His breath misted my cheek. Then I felt something, like a spider, creeping up my nylons. But it was bigger and far more menacing, and I flicked it away. I knew I should say something, but my conscience begged, let it go. If it weren't for him, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't even have this job. You owe him this. It triggered a memory. Back 6 years, when Bill hired me, I had interviewed with him twice. Each time he had read my resume, asked ridiculous questions, then thumbed through my writing and photography samples. He complimented my work, but didn't offer a job. The third time he finally said, "So why 4 employers in 6 years?" I practiced my response. I've been building up my writing and photography skills, preparing for a job like this. He studied me as if I'd made this up. I could have explained how I'd come from a long line of tradesmen, housewives, farmers, and factory workers. No one in my family had gone to college. In fact, Mom had only an 8th grade education, Dad maybe a 6th. I turned to TV for role models, and there found Anne Marie, a character played by Marlo Thomas in the 1960s show That Girl. She had everything I ever wanted: her own apartment in New York, stylish clothes, glamorous jobs. She struggled sometimes, but always bounced back, determined to reach her goal, become a Broadway actress. After college, I became a reporter on my hometown newspaper. Apparently, no woman had ventured into the reporter's corner in a long time. Papers and photographs were piled high on desk, and a thick cloud of cigarette smoke, greasy takeout food, and stale beer hung in the air. Male reporters eyed me over their reading glasses. I found my desk, my broken-down typewriter, and a chair and sat down to work. Wednesdays were always late nights, writing last-minute stories, making final edits and proofing. Pizza, beer, whiskey, and weed fueled these evenings. I felt out of place. I was barely 21, raised a Southern Baptist, and worried that the police would come and arrest us all, or I'd be fired and unable to find another job. So I remained straight, avoiding the editor, who grew ever louder and more animated. He had repeatedly asked for a blowjob in the darkroom. My face flamed. I couldn't even look at him. Eventually, he grabbed my arms, dragged me caveman style, while shouting to our coworkers, "Now we'll see what develops." They laughed. I scurried away like a little mouse, embarrassed and believing that I must have done something to cause this. I thought back to my girlhood idol, Anne Marie. If a man ever spoke rudely to her or made a pass, she'd become indignant, tell him to stop, and he would do just that. I found another job, then another. Each time I hoped for kinder male colleagues and more female co-workers. However, in Missouri in the late 1970s, few women held professional jobs other than teachers, secretaries, nurses, and bookkeepers. For a while, I worked and lived at a lake resort where I produced a small local magazine. One day, my boss asked for photographs of new property being developed. One of the guys with whom I'd joked around with in the mornings around the coffee pot offered to drive me there in his boat. Once we traveled beyond land sight, he grabbed me, pinned me to the floor, yanked off my clothes, ignoring my pleas for him to stop. At the very last second, he gave up and acted shocked when I threatened to report him to the company's director. His eyes grew wide and he shouted, "For God's sakes, don't tell anyone. I have a wife, kids, a mortgage. No one needs to know about this. Nothing happened. Nothing." Well, nothing happened to him. I was bruised and shaken, unable to go back to my office. I couldn't talk to anyone about this, not even my fiance. He'd demand I go to the police, or at least report it to my boss. Trouble was, this guy was the company's #1 salesman. I'd be fired, not him. I'd seen this before. Again, I wondered, had I done something to cause this? Had I misled this guy by simply being friendly, joking around? Did this make me easy or a pushover or a girl who didn't know how to say no, who would just go with the flow and have sex with whomever, whenever, and never tell? This deeply troubled me.
Debbie, that was amazing. It's just such a powerful story, and it's also so sad that these men were abusing you in one way or another. The character of Bill is quite intriguing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we'll find out more about him in a little bit.
At the end of the essay.
Yeah. Bill did offer me the job at the magazine, and it gave me an opportunity to do a lot of traveling and see places I didn't get a chance to see while living in Missouri.
How did you get from Missouri to New York City?
Well, that's exactly how. It was because I did have this job where I was traveling. I met my current husband, who lived in New Jersey. We met skiing while I was on actually a business trip, but I took a few days off to go skiing. We met, continued to correspond, and it was really because of this magazine job that I had met people in New York. And when they learned I was getting married and moving to New Jersey, they offered me the job immediately. So it was really having the job that enabled me to travel and find another job.
And so did you have an apartment in New York City like Anne Marie, that girl?
No, it wasn't quite like that. It was, my husband was working in New Jersey, so I worked and took the train in every day. But it was very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind.
Well, there's a lot. The transportation system in the New York, New Jersey area is pretty good. So
Yeah.
lots of different trains going to and from.
No, I was totally starry-eyed. Didn't matter 2 hours commuting each way, didn't matter. I was very excited.
Wow. So I wanted to ask, you're sitting in this restaurant, this funereal atmosphere, and Bill is talking, and well, there are a couple of questions here. One is, he tells you he loves you.
Yeah, he does, and because of the nature, this book, Fearless, is a combination of 30 essays, by 30 different women, and so I had to shorten my essay quite a bit, but there was quite a bit leading up to this moment because Bill had always made passes at me. Even after he first hires me, he'd always give me a hug, or he would give me a little tease or something, or put his arm around me or kiss me on the cheek or something. And he was always handsy and always exceptionally flirtatious with me. So I already knew this. That's why I was putting off this lunch. I already knew that this was not going to be good.
And it didn't go well for you.
No, it didn't.
So you're staring out the window at the gargoyles.
Uh-huh.
What do they mean to you? What is the symbolism?
Well, gargoyles on, something like Notre Dame is to scare off, demons, and but for me, because I had this incredible view of the Chrysler Building right outside my window, to me, it just meant empowerment. It was they were these eagles. These were eagle gargoyles because it's Chrysler Building, and also Margaret Burke White. You just cannot find a more iconic figure than this woman hanging out on a ledge above New York City and taking these magnificent shots of a very young New York City. And that was all very inspirational to me, just very. But gargoyles can also be very ugly too. So it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor that has various meanings.
Yes, they can be very menacing. I was looking at them today, just in preparation. Some of them are very evil looking. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you get up and you leave from that experience, and then your essay goes into another experience in which you're on a boat with someone who is a colleague, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I forget what you were doing there. You were there for a work-related reason.
Yeah, I am. I produced this magazine it was a magazine that went to a resort community, and I did the photography. I wrote the stories. I did the layouts, and so my boss had asked me go out and take some photographs of this new property, and the way the lake was set up. It would take quite a bit of driving to get to this spot, but this guy who, we joked around every day and had coffee, and it seemed very,
friendly.
Yeah, very friendly, but not too friendly. Offered to take me over there in his boat, and so I didn't see anything wrong with that. I'd gone places with other male colleagues, but it quickly turned really ugly, and I was not expecting that. And I certainly wasn't expecting I was not expecting that whatsoever. It really was very shattering, actually. It was shattering, and the rest of my tenure at this, I quickly left this job for another job because I just didn't want to stay in that atmosphere. It was embarrassing.
Yeah.
And anyway.
Yeah, so sorry you went through all of that. There is, I'm trying to put things together in my head. So the next job, there was a nice interaction with a man in the next job. Mm-hmm. Someone who seemed to care about you.
Yeah, I end up, I work in this magazine in St. Louis where I'm traveling. But then I end up in New York City working for this big publishing company. And I just happened to meet the CEO. I see him in the lobby. I see him around. We start talking. And I start joking around in a very, very friendly way. And but I have my guard up because I now know that these casual, friendly interludes can turn to something dangerous. But he calls me to his office at one point and tells me, you really got to hold your head up, and you've got to look clients in the eye, and you've got to run these meetings. You've got to stop, really kind of averting people's eyes and looking away and, kind of slouching around. And I don't know, I just thought about that and I thought, yeah, I can't be beat down. I've got to stand up and speak up, and I can't be beat down. I've got to move on. And it was a big hurdle. But then I started watching the other women in New York City. It was so different from being in Missouri, where women were conditioned to be in a subservient role, even in the workplace, but not in New York City. No, women were running meetings, women were head of their companies, and I began to see how I could be different too. I could be different, and it gave me a lot of hope and it gave me a lot of courage.
So if you were raising a daughter today, what advice would you offer?
Well, I be strong. Be strong. Don't be afraid, and speak up for yourself, for God's sakes. Don't back down. And I do. I do speak up for myself. And I have confronted the head of companies and told them that, it's just not treating me fairly. I don't make enough money. I don't, and so that's what I would tell a young woman today. Hold your head up, look people in the eye, let them know that that you mean business and that you are capable and strong. And I find that makes a huge difference. It helps you feel good inside too.
Yes, that you can stand up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How has art helped you in your life?
Oh gosh, art to me comes at two very different levels. It's the art, visual art and cultural art, and then it's writing. And I began as a journalist, and I loved journalism, but I even love more now, doing creative writing, creative nonfiction, and I realize that is really an art. It's something that's taken me a long, long time to grow into. But a lot of my life I've spent, and I still continue to write stories about visual arts. And I don't know, there's just so much. It allows me to elevate my life into another plane. That I just love. It does. It makes living worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, it's part of your identity, I would imagine. And having a platform of any kind, I always feel is empowering. So there you are on your platform, your writing platform, and you've done an awful lot. I think the bio is just the barest of the barest
That's
bones
so nice.
of what you have done. But I'm wondering if our viewers can get a copy of this. Is there a way? Do we know?
Oh, absolutely. It's on Amazon.
Oh,
and, it's published by Mountain State Press. And Mountain State Press is a small literary press in West Virginia. And it's a great book about 30 different women who are everything from best-selling writers to women in poverty who have found ways to empower their lives, these are all true stories about, overcoming obstacles and living their lives rich and fuller. And I was just so honored to be able to be a part of it because, that's what I'm all about. I teach young people who are 18 years old how to write about art, and just being able to guide them and help them feel empowered in writing about their own stories and their own art is very empowering to me too.
What's your next project?
I'm working on a series of essays that, with any luck, will be compiled into a book. But, each one is like its own little gem, and it's more like a diamond because it just it takes a long time to make.
It sure does. I know. I get it. Well, I wanted to thank you for coming today and being the first of our Women in Empowerment series. It was so generous and kind of you to give us this time. Is there any last parting words you want to give us?
Oh, Joyce, thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute delight. Yes, keep promoting women empowering themselves and pursuing the arts because, there's so much beauty, so much richness in it. So, yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. For WestfordCAT News, this is Joyce Pellino Crane. See you around town.